First of all, thank you very much indeed for everybody tuning in. We are following up from last week where we looked at the issues relating to different areas of funding and what's actually happening. And from those conclusions where we found that investors were being very cautious, waiting until the risk came out. We're waiting for banks saying things are going to be very tight for new customers. But existing customers, they're looking at things well. We had a number of people coming through to us saying, what are the alternative sources of finance? And I'm delighted to say we've got two experts in this field. And I'll introduce the two panelists to you right now. We've got Bruce Pattens from Pattens Group. Who will give us an introduction in a second. He'll tell you all about the grants that are available ultimately. And we've got Cameron Owens, who's joining us from Radium Capital, that actually look at funding R&D taxation. So if we just start off with Bruce then. Bruce, do you just want to give us a quick 30-second intro for everybody so they can get a feel for what you're doing and what you're working on, if anything new?
Thanks, Tim. Pleasure to be here tonight. We are grant specialists working across all grants, been doing that for 30 plus years. I was previously Group Financial Controller at Cochlear, and Cochlear only exists today because of government grants. We're currently continuing to secure grants for businesses. There's a lot more there now. And we've recently expanded our team to help people with the stimulus package support.
That's great. Thank you, Bruce. And Cameron, I'll pass over to you as CEO of Radium Capital.
Thank you. Well, firstly, thanks for the opportunity to join yourself tonight, Tim. By way of background, just recently joined Radium Capital as the CEO, and sort of in previous lives have worked in sort of larger blue chip businesses, the likes of NAB and GE and Shell as an example, and more recently in early stage type businesses. In terms of what Radium is, we are a specialist in R&D finance, and what we do is help businesses get an early payment on their R&D tax incentive or refunds. So that's us.
Excellent stuff. And I will just, for everybody's sake, you'll see that there's somebody else on the screen. This is Brad, who's running the tech behind everything that's going on. So I'll just put over to Brad for a quick intro.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Bradley Hughes. I'm the COO of Fractonium, and I am also active in the blockchain industry. I'm the co-organizer of Blockchain Sydney Meetup Group, over 2,200 members now, and transitioning from our physical events to online events. So we've been hosting some of these in conjunction with Blockchain Sydney. I'm also the Sydney chair of FIBRE, FIBREE, Foundation of International Blockchain Real Estate. So it's anything to do with blockchain and real estate. I'm heavily involved in that as well. And here just to facilitate any questions from participants tonight, attendees, I can direct those to the appropriate panelists and respond myself as well. So I'll just be here monitoring and responding to your questions. Thank you.
Okay, that's excellent. Thanks, Brad. Well, look, I mean, obviously it is a very difficult and tumultuous time that we're all going through, as we explored last week and the week before. So I'd just like to ask both Bruce and Cameron, research and development funding, or research and development overall in terms of the taxation and its funding. The taxation side has had a good and a bad rap over the past 12 to 18 months, with tighter restrictions being seen, especially in the last recent months. But just a quick top level, where is the market overall now, that, given that we're seeing very challenged circumstances? Do you want to give a quick sense of that, Bruce? You've been actively involved in getting R&D tax applications through.
Yeah, the great thing about startups and innovators is nothing will stop them. They will pursue it no matter what. The bad rap that the R&D tax incentive scheme has had is basically because people have been using people that didn't know the rules. It's like a footballer coming off the field saying we lost because the goalposts were so close. We didn't appreciate they're going to be close together. If you know the rules, they're all laid out for you. There is no reason why a company that meets those requirements can't get paid. So the money is still there. There is some changes before the Parliament at the moment, but I doubt that they'll go through because they didn't go through last time. So it's still happening. People are still out there, still claiming, and the government's still paying.
Okay, well, that's refreshing that they haven't, that they seem to be, sort of maintaining a bit of the status quo and still actively, sort of engaged. And Cameron, I mean, I appreciate you've started in the last 3 months in your role as taking the reins of as CEO. Now, when we spoke yesterday, you mentioned that you're seeing a lot of activity coming through, and last month I think was your best month. I mean, do you want to just give us a sense of what you're seeing then?
Yeah, very, very much so, Tim. What I sort of noticed in sort of coming into the role and meeting a lot of our partners and customers, that some of the feedback we got is that there were definitely some sort of tighter restrictions on the R&D funding, and that was probably to Bruce's point, government just ensuring that it sort of wasn't sort of prone to abuse, and I think they've probably achieved that, and we're sort of seeing it sort of come back to maybe a more sort of safer place for both the participants and government. But more generally, what we have seen is that I guess a lot of the traditional capital markets where startups have been fishing for capital are drying up, and as an outcome of us having, I guess, a strong access to capital and this program still being very much available, to Bruce's point, we're having a really sort of strong period, and we're actively seeing sort of startups recognising that this is a great source of capital that they should be tapping into to shore up their balance sheet, their cash flow, and protect their equity position. So
because I guess, I mean, again, when we spoke yesterday, Radium Capital's got a new major funder behind you. So
we've our main shareholder and parent company is Brevet Capital, who are an alternative credit business or funder, based out of the US, and sort of quite a significant business there. And they've always they're sort of thematic as an alternative credit provider is sort of government. So naturally for us, nothing has fundamentally changed, other than we now have, I guess, a greater appetite for people looking for an early payment on their R&D tax incentive.
Right. And Bruce, you mentioned obviously it's about the knowing where the goalposts are. Now, again, I know when we spoke, you are very proud of the fact, and I think you should quite rightly be, that you've raised funding of in excess of 1.5 billion with a 99.99% success rate. Now, do you want to talk to that a little bit? I mean, it's an incredible achievement to get that sort of success rate. What do you think is the reason behind that very high success rate?
Well, we've been in business for over 30 years, so we've been doing a lot of grants. We have good relationships with people in government. Not that helps you with an application, but it helps you when you need to talk to someone about something. And we don't need to do that much these days, but it's always good to keep the government people on side, to be open and honest with them and tell them everything, except what they don't need to know, of course. And I guess the beauty about it is that we don't just work in R&D and export and the, I guess, entitlement schemes. We work across all grants, particularly the competitive ones, Accelerating Commercialisation, Medical Device Fund New South Wales, and we've been successful in those as well. So we try and get inside a public servant's head, which is scary, to understand how they're going to interpret what's written and actually read things that aren't there, because we know how they will respond to what's not written.
Right. So
if that makes any sense.
No, sure. I guess the power is, it's over that 30 odd years, whatever, you've developed some very strong relationships. As you say, you can pick up the phone and say, hey, Angie, or hey, Fred, whatever it might be, because you've got that longevity of relationship. I guess that probably helps in marginal situations, does it?
It does help where you've got some questions and you just want to get a little bit of feedback to see how they're going to look at it and how they're going to interpret it. With the R&Ds, we've had 100% track record in R&Ds, never had one fail. It's only some of the competitive schemes. Sometimes they might just not get across the board. But yeah, having someone to talk to bounce things off. And I guess it's like dealing with a real estate agent. They'll be honest about someone's house and say, I don't like this and I don't like that. Whereas the owner loves everything. So it's just good to have that middle person to run it through and to get honest feedback.
Okay, that's great. That's very sound advice there, I think. So, I mean, with the government the government stimulus package has just come in. So, yeah, I think it's having a microphone above me that looks very phallic. I'm sorry about that. That's probably what it is. But no, anyway, let's not go there. Yeah, with the government stimulus package, if any, I mean, are there any sort of changes relating to R&D taxation and grants and that sort of thing that you're seeing?
I think entrepreneurs, startup businesses should look at the stimulus package as an incentive. There's a real benefit there now where a lot of them would not pay themselves a salary. There's a benefit now they can pay themselves some money. They're going to get the PAYG back and then they can turn around and claim it. So if you've got a company wasn't paying the owner anything, you pay them $50,000, you turn around and claim it. You're now going to get back $24,250 for a $50,000 claim. And if they've lent the money to the company and given it back, well, if they've lent the money to the company's paid them and they've given it back, you've got tax-free money sitting in the books of the account of the company, which you can pay out later when things get better. $100,000, you're talking $48,500 tax-free in cash. So it's great for companies with losses that haven't had the money. Now you've got the opportunity. The usual question I get at is, we don't have $50,000 to pay me. Have you got 1,000? You can pay yourself 1,000 today, right? Lend it back to the company, pay yourself 1,000 tomorrow. I mean, in 90 days, you got 90,000. And it was just the same 1,000 going round and round. So there's a great opportunity there for people to have a legitimate, reasonable claim and get some money out of this scheme by not doing anything illegal, but just using the government incentive schemes.
Right. So it's really, if they need to talk to someone like you, for example, that actually knows all the nuances and the wrinkles to know the landscape, really, I guess. It
does help if you've got someone that knows the rules, but it's not about just the R&D, because sometimes people will say the wrong thing in an R&D claim, which will throw them out of one of the other grants or multiple other grants, just by wording things incorrectly, saying the wrong thing, not expressing what they should. And quite often they don't look at the actually ultimate goal of the project. They'll look at it short term. They might be traveling from Sydney to Cairns and they'll say, okay, I'm going to Newcastle. That's just crazy. You know, to tell the government what the ultimate goal of your project is, so you're going to get funded long term.
Right. So clearly there's, and I guess with big data coming in, I guess the government and the external providers they've got are going to be looking, are going to be putting matching data together, I guess. And so that's really important to ensure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Exactly.
I mean, tell the government everything, present them exactly what they want to hear, and they'll give you the money, which is why we've never had a problem with an R&D claim. The government has been clawing money back up to date to try and reduce the amount that's out there. They've pulled back over 200 million. We haven't seen anything go back. They've just looked at ours and said, yep, that's fine.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Now, Cameron, we both used to work for GE Capital, for example.
We did.
Now, during times of recession and tough times, obviously banking credit becomes tougher. I mean, and I'm not asking you to commit to anything, because obviously I appreciate you've been in the role for the last 3 months. But obviously you're open for business, but I guess do you just want to give a sense of what sort of businesses are the ideal case for you?
Yeah, the businesses that we love to support are, if you just sort of talk fundamentally at a principle level, we love to support Australian businesses that are creating new value for the economy. So that's sort of our kind of core purpose. We love to support businesses, to everything that Bruce was talking about, that have legitimate, defendable R&D refunds. So that's kind of, I guess, the first principle. And again, we love to support businesses that are going to be around today and into the future. So we're really wanting to have a strong understanding that they've got the balance sheet to support themselves in the near to medium term. So they're kind of the key things. So we're looking to ensure that they've got a defendable R&D tax refund, and then we need to get confident that they've got the balance sheet to support themselves in the near to medium term to ensure that they're going to be around.
But I guess if there's, I mean, given the current environment, it's a blip, it's an exogenous blip that's happened where people won't have had a control over that. So I guess, are your credit guys sensitive to that, or and will they judge every case on its own merit? I mean, where are you seeing it?
Well, we always judge every case on its merits. But again, it just gets back to the fundamental principles that we just need to have a really good understanding. We work with really credible partners that do work of the highest quality, similar to Bruce, that make sure that the R&D tax refund is defendable. And then we just need to get comfortable that we're going to be providing funding to someone who's going to be around. And yeah, yes, it definitely has got a bit more complex as we're all navigating our way through a complex environment. But sort of at the opening, you sort of described, as I explained to you, the fact that we're as busy as ever. So we're actively supporting good Australian businesses that are going to be around today and tomorrow. So that's probably as sort of as clear as I can be. But we're here to support, and we fundamentally understand that the part that we're playing is by releasing this capital back into the economy earlier, so that these really important Australian businesses are going to survive, have the cash flow, and protect their equity position as they move forward.
All right, no, it's good to see that there's a lender that's embracing the current conditions. Obviously, it's all going to be subject on a case-by-case basis, and I understand that. But it's refreshing to hear there is a checkbook that's available in inverted commas.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the incoming CEO and the mandate that received from our parent company is that and it's our clear message out to this audience and to others where we've been very public about this, is that we're very much open for business, and we're very much here to support good quality Australian businesses who are brave people. They're absolutely having big swings, doing really interesting things, creating new value, new jobs, and we want to be part of their success and aid them with their cash flow needs.
Okay, excellent. Now, Bruce, I mean, what would you say are essentially, if a startup's looking for grants right now, which obviously a lot are going to be pre-preparing, they're going to be sort of saying to themselves, okay, it could be challenging in the next 6, 9, 12 months. What are the best grants that you're seeing that would be appropriate for those sorts of customers?
Well, I think we all agree it's going to be challenging over the next 6 to 12 months. That's not a problem. But the things there, first, the entitlement schemes, the R&D tax incentive is great. It's tax-free money. If you've got losses, it's not a problem. The other one, which the government has just put 49.8 million in, is the Export Market Development Scheme. That is, they've removed the export earnings test on it. And they've guaranteed that all claims will be paid out 100%. We know that claims that were lodged for the last financial year are being assessed at the moment and will be paid out next week in full. So that's great. Accelerating commercialisation is still running, $1 million matching funding to get a new product technology innovation out into the workforce. The CSIRO Kickstart's got $50,000 worth of match funding to work with the CSIRO if someone needs access to the technology and the skills within the CSIRO. New South Wales got tech vouchers for $15,000 to work with the university. That gives you access to their equipment, not only their people. ACT's got a Discovery Translation Fund of $50,000, which is accessible. Victoria's got the Business Support Fund, $10,000 for startups. Queensland's mainly focused on tourism. There's a Attracting Tourism Fund. South Australia's got the Research, Commercialisation and Startup Fund, up to $500,000. And Western Australia's got the New Industries Fund, which is $20,000. But if you're in Western Australia and you're looking to claim that, you need to get in quick because that one closes the 8th of April. So there's a lot of money there. There's still 700 plus grants out there worth over $50 billion on top of the stimulus funding that's there. So you're crazy not to take it. Don't leave it with the government.
Right. I mean, that's very, very valid, very valuable insights. I mean, I know the MVP grant, the minimum viable product grant from New South Wales was put in abeyance midway through last year, and now they've reopened that up again. Is that right?
That's right. There was a big building partnerships that went with it and a couple of loans. They didn't bring those back. But the MVP, $25,000 worth of matching funding to get a minimal viable product that is so attractive, so useful, so helpful. And from that, you can head into something like acceleration, commercialization to get the product out into the market quickly. It's a great scheme. About 1 in 4 get up. Our role in that is generally not to do the full application, but we'll work with a client, review their application, do that for nothing.
Right. Okay. So you'll review an MVP grant application for those that are on the livecast, if they want to actually submit something through to you. Is that right?
Exactly. And we'll put them in touch with a relevant person that they can speak to, that'll give them honest feedback and give them the highest chances of success.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a very generous offer. Thank you, Bruce. Well, in the show notes, I mean, Bruce's LinkedIn. You're happy for people to connect on LinkedIn and that type of thing?
I don't use LinkedIn a lot. I prefer people just send me an email. Happy to do it direct.
Okay, and the email address. Sorry, we haven't put the email address on the slide here. But what's the email address?
Easiest one is probably grants@pattens, PATTENS.com.
Okay, excellent. Grants.
Don't put AU on the end of it because we don't answer to AU.
Right. Okay. So grants@pattens.com. And Cameron, in terms of going for funding for, going for the R&D taxation funding, what's the process that you have for doing that?
Yeah, well, that's probably one of the things we're super proud of, is that we've got a proprietary platform that most importantly enables startups and early stage businesses to get funded within 5 business days, and that's a pretty unique value proposition that we're proud of. But most importantly is you need a good, in the first point, you need a good R&D refund specialist. Someone like Bruce as an example, or one of our many partners, to make sure that you've got a defendable and eligible claim. So that's kind of like the first place to start. And our partners, what we do from them as a financer or funder, is that we're looking for a comfort letter from an R&D tax advisor to basically tell us that the R&D spend is eligible, and that payment will come. Will come. So that's, I guess, a key step in the process, is that engage your R&D tax partner. We need to get that comfort level. The other key thing is we need to understand what your ATO position is. One of the key criteria here is that you can't have any outstanding ATO tax position. And from there, it's really about just giving us a call or applying online, and we have some very helpful people in our business who will just help you navigate your way through our platform. And as I mentioned at the start, you'll get funded within 5 days is sort of our commitment.
I think when one considers that banks, I don't know what the average lead time is for a bank application, but it's certainly a heck of a lot longer than 5 days. In my days of working in banking, as you've got that wry smile on your face, the same as me, that banks will take as long as their credit guys take, and it's and you'll get this backwards and forwards and negotiations going on left, right, and centre. So
that's right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that sort of gets back to our sort of unique and proprietary platform and processes. And we're taking different forms of security, and our security is that we're only interested in is primarily to get a first ranking charge over the R&D refund. So it's really quite unique. So we don't have to really be probably I don't know how to describe it, but we sort of have a sort of more of a lightweight approach to getting security on terms of the lending that we provide. So again, just the fundamentals, work with a good R&D tax specialist. We have some great partners who we work with, and again, our people can just help you move through that process in a super efficient way.
Okay, that's excellent. That's great. It sounds like it's a very simple process. I guess the final question before we sort of get any questions from any of the audience that are attending is, I mean, with most people working from home, are you seeing, or how are you seeing the decision-making process overall?
Well, for us, I guess like most of the audience that'll be online today, we're all working remotely. So, we're a digital business, we're a fintech. So for us, as a team, we're working remotely. Our teams locally in the US are all working remotely. So for us, nothing sort of fundamentally changed. I think the thing that we've been really encouraged by is that our teams are very nimble and adjusting to this change, and we have good people that are just navigating their way through it. So for us, at this stage, we're not sort of seeing any noticeable change. We're just navigating our way. But I'm sure Bruce might have some different perspectives on it. Yeah,
Bruce, I'm interested in your views, given that you're dealing with government. Does this slow things? Have you seen things slowing down, or what's your take?
With the R&D, I've actually seen it coming through a lot quicker. They seem to be pushing things through a lot quicker, understanding the benefit it is. But I'm seeing a lot more inquiries coming through from people. Had one today, a company with an $800 million turnover, saying, we need help. Can you find us money? And we're just getting a lot more inquiries coming through than before. But I think it's giving people time to sit and reflect and think, how can I restructure my business to make it come out the other side better than it was when it went in?
Yeah,
it's like the GFC.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Bruce, to talk over you, but that echoes our experiences too. Like we've noticed inbound inquiries have gone up exponentially. And then as we're calling out to our customers, they now have time to actually take our calls and have a considered conversation with us. And they're far more open to our proposition than they maybe have been previously. So very different dynamics in the marketplace.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, Cameron? I mean, we both work for GE, as I say, yes. And in the States right now, when the stock market was just imploding, the call was put out by private equity guys that had funded a lot of these companies that to borrow everything that you had on the table immediately, with the idea there was a paranoid sense of fear that the banks would be pulling credit. Putting credit lines. And I mean, I've seen it happen in my time being through 2 recessions, that has happened. And I mean, I think that it's probably, that could be one of the things that's driving. I think there's a big sense of fear. And I think it's great that you're actually in the market, making funds available for the right deals. I mean, obviously I appreciate you won't be able to handle every deal. I fully get that. Now we've had a question, Bruce, for you, if I may. The question from Boris was asking if you take a clip or commission from the MVP grant applications, or for that matter, any other types you assist with. Sort of saying at no cost. Obviously, that's not going to be the case. How do you work, Bruce? Is it really, I guess, the question?
Well, we do work on a success fee, but there are a lot of grants that you don't really need the consultant to be actually directly involved in. And the MVP is one. It's an online application. The questions are pretty simple, straightforward. If you address the questions, you've got a good chance, but you're better off to get an expert to run their eyes over it, give you some feedback and say, this is not going to run, this is not going to run. CSRO Kickstart, $50,000. We don't take a clip on that. We will introduce you to the right people, make sure it happens. We basically just work on a success fee for where we have to sit down and put a detailed application together, like things like R&D, export, accelerating commercialization, things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess with so many people no longer able to fly and go to conferences. I mean, I was due to be speaking at a couple of conferences and to attend a couple of conferences. Obviously, they've all been kiboshed now. I guess the Export Marketing Development Grant is going to be, there's going to be a lot less inquiries on that side, I would imagine.
Well, there should be more because the government's removed the export earnings test. So you don't need any sales. If you had a conference you were going to go to and it got cancelled and you're still left with a bill, you can claim it. They're not saying.
Is that right?
Yes, they've changed the rules on that, announced yesterday. Claims that were lodged and being assessed will be paid in full next week, I've been told. It's before the government at the moment. And next year's claims, they're going to pay them in full, and they'll pay them by the end of March as opposed to the end of June. So it's $40,000 up front plus the balance by the end of March. Anything that's been impacted by a cancellation of COVID-19 will be paid in full.
That's the first I've heard of it, and I'm really pleased that we've heard that, because been hearing a lot of people saying their insurance companies aren't covering them. You know, so if you paid for the flight, to go to a conference or to actually put an exhibition stand, they're not covering, because they're saying, well, you've actually got the opportunity, you've still got your flights.
And you can claim that and get half back. I mean, it's not all of it back. Yeah, half's better than nothing.
No, for sure, absolutely. We've got another question that's come through. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just reading this as a sort of, now that people cannot do any presentations or lobbying in person, does that change the process in any way? Was that ever a significant component of in-person pitching for government grants? So I guess the question really is, if people can't do presentations or lobbying in person, does that change the grant process in any way from your side?
We don't do a lot of lobbying with government because they don't make the decisions. They pass the legislation and leave other people to do the work. So we talk to the people that are actually doing the work, and they've got their guidelines, their rules, their regulations that they work to. So we don't spend a lot of time talking with them. We basically will lodge an application based on the requirements and how we know that they're going to assess it. Right. So no, it hasn't got an impact.
Okay. To those words, we work primarily online with Zoom obviously now increasingly part of the process, but it's all digital, so there's no material changes.
Right, excellent stuff. Well, look, I mean, we've come up to the half-hour block. If there are no other questions, then I mean, I think there's been some really interesting and very insightful things that you guys have come up with. The first thing that I think is great that that Cameron, you've actually got a checkbook that's actually available for the right deals. That's very refreshing to actually hear. And it's also very refreshing to hear, Bruce, that that if you've committed to export grants and you can't get over to do your conference, that's something I hadn't heard of. So really appreciative for that today. And I think the key thing that you said, that 99% or 99.99% of actual grant applications and R&D taxation that you've been involved with, you've been successful with. So there's obviously a very, very good track record. Now we will be making, we've got details in the show notes for, if you go to fractonium.com/webinars, we've got the LinkedIn details of Cameron and Bruce, and we'll put put the details, the email address for Bruce there, if you're happy for that, Bruce.
That's no problem. Or they can call my office directly on 1-800-GRANTS.
1-800-GRANTS. Okay, that's excellent. Well, look, if we don't have any other questions, I think we've probably covered everything we needed to cover. Have you got, the one thing that we're asking panelists as one final observation, okay? 1 30-second final observation. If we head into recession, what is the one key tip you would give to all startups?
I'll have a crack. My observation is that there's a lot of commentary around cash flow, rightfully so, but you might find in this massive change that rolling through that your business might be right in terms of the opportunity right here, right now. And an example I'd point to is telehealth. Now, telehealth has been waiting for a time to be relevant. And now, because of what's happening with the coronavirus, it has become central to the way that we're actually delivering health. So your opportunity might be coming sooner than you actually realise. So yeah, that's my observations, Tim.
Right. So very much sort of, really embrace where the changes are and try and work out whether you can optimize your strengths.
Exactly, because your competitor might be the largest one today. They may not be around tomorrow, so you might sort of find yourself moving up the food chain and becoming the incumbent.
Good valuable seasoned words there. And Bruce, your comment.
Yeah, no, I agree with Cameron. I'm seeing a lot more people developing telehealth solutions, but I guess I'd ask people to stop and think about how they position their business, that they need to provide a service where there's a need or a solution or solve a problem. It doesn't have to be the most innovative solution in the world, but you just need to do it well. Cochlear was a great example of great technology that was done well. But there's a company, we've got Jim's Group, which has got $1 billion turnover, and he cuts lawns, does TV aerials, home inspections. So it doesn't have to be absolutely brilliant. If it's got innovation in it, it stands you apart. But there are government grants out there. You should take them. Only take them if they fit in with your business. And use the example, if you're driving from Sydney to Brisbane and they're giving petrol away for free in Adelaide, it's not worth going down there to get it. But find the grants that will help you achieve the objectives that you want your business to do, and take it, because a grant is pure profit. So you get a $100,000 grant. Think of what you've got to do to achieve $100,000. How much do you have to sell? What's the cost? What do you got to do to get that same result? So grants are a great source of funds and can help you get your business to the next level or survive.
Yeah, very sound advice. I mean, it's really interesting, just echoing the points that you've said. I mean, I know the guys at Wholesale Investor pretty well, and they've iterated their business model in 3 weeks, right? Where they were having the big events like the emergence events, which we exhibited at going back in October time last year, where they had in-person presentations. They put everything into online investment pitches, and they had 500 investors actually joining the call. And in 3 weeks, they've iterated the whole business model. And I think everybody, I think in my view, echoing what you guys were saying, is very much about, there are opportunities in these difficult times. You just have to find them and think a bit outside the square. I mean, this coronavirus won't be around forever, but I think the changes that it has brought will be. Yeah. There's so much, the way we telework. I mean, telehealth, as you were saying, Cameron. I mean, I think everything is just going to change, and I think there's so much opportunity. And if one can actually attack that opportunity and get funding for it, like grants from Bruce and like the R&D tax funding from Cameron at Radium Capital, I think if we all approach it with an open mind and just think outside the square, I think the opportunities are there for us to take. So
yeah, very much so. It's sort of a enforced experiment that we're running through, and it's just going to require a lot of us to be more nimble and adaptive than we have been before. And there's going to be some very unexpected turns that are going to sometimes work against us, but sometimes work in our favour, and they may not be obvious today, but it's just keep the lights on as long as possible, and just be prepared for what comes your way, and it might fortune might favour you.
And I mean, again, just one thing that I've noticed in the past 4 weeks is that when you have the massive pain points that exist, technology gets adopted. If you've got technology that can solve that headache, it's the classic, is it a vitamin or a painkiller? If it's a painkiller and it solves the problem right now that people are facing right now, then people will embrace it. And I think that's the key learnings that certainly I've seen in the past 4 weeks. And certainly in the blockchain space that we're involved with. The blockchain has been, in some ways, sort of, it's a nice to have, although there are certain markets where it's a must have. And we're just working on something that I can't say too much about at the moment, but I hope to be able to release it next week, where we're dealing with a problem that the coronavirus is bringing into the whole retail space. And we're trying to look at a significant way of solving that. And if it works, it'll be fantastic. If it doesn't, well, you know, the learnings will actually enable us to create new products anyway. So I think it's about just being open to the opportunity and get funding to help them.
Yeah, it'll surprise you. And I think maybe the work that you've done in the past will start to come to fruition potentially in this next period. I've been a very sort of patient investor in a virtual reality 360-degree startup, and it's sort of been almost an incubator for the last few years. Fighting for commercialization
We've got a bit of a problem with your audio there, Cameron. Sorry. Just try it again.
Is that better, Tim?
Yeah, that's better now. That's better now. Sorry, it got distorted. Just say it again.
Yeah, no worries. I was just saying I've been a very sort of patient investor in a 360-degree video virtual reality startup, which for 2 years has been fighting for a commercial application and relevance. And now, as you can't get into, for example, aged care services or occupational health and safety, or for real estate agents to do property walkthroughs, all of a sudden this technology is incredibly valuable. Now, we've seen that for a considered period of time, but it's only now that it's presented itself as an opportunity. So I think for these early stage businesses that we've been discussing today, I think there's possibly some great opportunity that's in front of them.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to hear a really positive story coming out of this. Sorry, Bruce. Sorry, you going to say?
No, that's fine. No, I agree with Cameron. I mean, challenges create opportunities, and you can sit there and say, "Oh me, oh my," but there's a whole new opportunity that's created. Not looking at where we are now, but where we're going to be, and what are people going to need going forward. I've got clients that are working on solutions to the COVID-19, and one of them, which I can't talk about, has had some exceptional results. Hoping to see something come out in the news on that next week. But yeah, there is a huge opportunity for people, probably not to think outside the square, but to think outside the tetrahedron as to what can be produced and what can be done. You know, think smart. Australia is a really smart country with really smart people. So let's use that smarts to take over the world. Yeah,
I agree. That's one of the great kind of fortunate things about being in the business that Bruce and ourselves that I'm in, is you get to see every day some really interesting Australian businesses just doing some really amazing things, and it's great to be part of businesses that are fundamentally supporting and just being part of some of the it's just so cool what they're doing, and to be participating in that and helping them get to the next stage is it's super rewarding. And if we can just get through this and grab those opportunities on the way, we'll be fine.
Well, I think I love it that we leave on a really positive note. I think that's great. I mean, there's so much negativity around the COVID-19, and I think just to hear the echoing the idea that Aussies can actually punch above their weight, and they've done that for years in sport, in everything. You know, we punch above our weight, and I think that is an awesome sort of statement on the psyche of Aussies. I think there are massive opportunities, and let's all look for those opportunities in amongst the mire that we're seeing at the moment, and we'll go through. But look, I just want to say a big thank you to Bruce and Cameron for freeing up their time. It has been very insightful, and I'm really grateful, and absolutely reach out to these guys if there's a way in which you feel they might be able to assist in what you're doing. I'd like to thank Brad as well behind the scenes, who, sorry, just gone dark in this room. Sorry, I apologise for that. They've got one of these intelligent lights in here, and I think they've realised that the person in the room has got no intelligence and they've just gone dark. So I think it's I just want to thank Brad as well for behind the scenes. We will be making this available as a recorded version. We'll just play with some of the sound bits that got a bit bit worked up there. But thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Cameron, and thank you, Brad. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week, same time on Thursday at 7 o'clock. We're just trying to finalise the topic for next week. But if you've got any comments or suggestions, always happy to embrace it. So thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Cameron.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cameron.
Bye.